Love triangles are simple, but the simple truth is they become complicated once one person stops loving the other two. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alexander Sneerson, and this here is my partner, Thomas McCarty. And today we represent the people of the city of San Juan. Our job is to prove three things. Number one, that Hunter Prasada murdered Corey Valentine. Number two, that he obstructed justice. And number three, that he concealed the evidence that the murder occurred. And we're going to do that today using 2 points. Number one, that Corey Valentine got in the way of Hunter Prasada. And number two, that Hunter Prasada tried to destroy the evidence. About 1 year ago, two people were in a relationship. Corey Valentine and Ashley Martinez. You're going to hear Ashley Martinez talk about their relationship. And that you're going to hear Ashley Martinez testify that at some point they wanted to make things a little more interesting. They wanted to spice things up. And so to do so, they chose to open up their relationship to the defendant, Hunter Prasada. For about 2 months it worked, but things didn't work out as planned, and Corey Valentine wanted to close things off to Hunter Prasada. She wanted to bring things back just between herself and Ashley Martinez. Well, ever since that moment, everything changed. Hunter Prasada wanted Ashley Martinez back for himself. He told her that she would be his, no matter what. And you're going to hear her testify to that today. Well, eventually, Hunter Prasada starts to get his way. He starts having an affair with Ashley Martinez. Corey Valentine has no clue that this is going on. Well, to his disappointment, Ashley Martinez doesn't talk to Corey Valentine about this. In fact, she keeps everything about their affair in the shadows. Well, the new year begins. It's 2017. Hunter Prasada is still chasing Ashley Martinez, trying to get her back for himself, but she won't have it. So he changes his approach. After work one day, he casually proposes to her, tosses her a ring. Well, again, despite his efforts, she doesn't take it serious. You're going to hear her testify that she thought it was a joke. Well, so, despite this, Hunter Prasada tries something new. He shows up to the home of Ashley Martinez and Corey Valentine. He walks in, has some sort of conversation that escalates into an argument. By the time he walks out, just a short period later, Corey Valentine is dead. The next thing that happens is the cover-up. Hunter Prasada takes the body of Corey Valentine, dead body, brings it into Corey Valentine's car, drives Corey Valentine's car to the outside of Ashley Martinez's ex-husband's home. He leaves the car there, and on Dia de Candelaria, he burns the car. And that's when things start to change. At this point, the investigation begins. You're going to hear Chief Claudio talk about the the responding officer that showed up to the burning car. You're going to hear him testify how the investigation all began. That once he saw the burning car and had the suspicion that it was Corey Valentine's car, he cornered it off, sent it down to an expert to be analyzed. And you're going to hear him talk about what that expert said, how that expert was able to connect Corey Valentine to that car, how he identified a metal plate from Corey Valentine's shoulder, and how the expert was able to identify the VIN number which confirmed that that car was in fact Corey Valentine's. You're also going to hear Chief Claudio testify about another expert from the phone company that traced the steps that Hunter Prasada took, that followed the phone everywhere they went. And you're also going to hear Chief Claudio testify about how Corey Valentine's phone was found in the home of Hunter Prasada. Remember this testimony, because at the end, after we prove our case, the defendant, Hunter Prasada, may choose to take the stand and tell you his version of the story. The version that doesn't accept responsibility for the death of Corey Valentine. The fact of the matter is, Hunter Prasada killed Corey Valentine out of jealousy. And at the end of this case, my partner, Thomas McCarty, is going to ask that you find him guilty on all 3 counts of murder, obstruction of justice, and concealment of the evidence. We ask that you find a verdict of guilty. Thank you. Jealousy is a powerful emotion. My name is Alexander Sneerson, and alongside with my co-counsel, Thomas McCarty, we represent the people of San Juan. Today's case starts back in a kitchen. Imagine yourself in a kitchen. Well, in this kitchen, we have 2 lovers, Ashley Martinez and the victim, Corey Valentine. Officer Martinez and Officer Valentine are both in their home doing whatever couples normally do on any regular evening. Well, at some point, the evening takes a turn for the worst. Ashley Martinez finds out that one of her ex-lovers, the defendant, Hunter Prasada, is outside. She gets a phone call. Well, she tells Corey Valentine about this, and Corey looks at her and says, "Why don't you go upstairs and take care of the kids? I'll take care of this." So she goes upstairs, she sees her 2 kids, an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, gives them a Benadryl to put them asleep, puts on some music. About 10-15 minutes goes by. Well, during those 10 or 15 minutes, Corey Valentine goes up to the door, opens it, sees Hunter Prasada. She invites him into the house, and they start to have a conversation. Well, you're going to hear Ashley Martinez testify that that conversation escalated very quickly. Turned into something like a yelling match. And that yelling match eventually led to a loud thud. followed by silence. And when she went back downstairs, all she could see was blood and her lover, Corey Valentine, in pieces. Hunter Prasada gets up and looks at her and says, "Now, you'll be mine forever." And that's what brings us here today. Today we have three charges against the defendant. Those three charges are murder, obstruction of justice, and concealment of the evidence. And we're going to prove that to you with 2 points today. Well, the theme of today's case is that love triangles are simple, but they're not easy. Someone inevitably gets jealous. And that person, in this case, was Hunter Prasada. Now, to get into my first point, Corey Valentine got in the way of Hunter Prasada. You're going to hear Officer Martinez testify about the relationship that she had with Corey Valentine and how at some point they wanted to spice things up a little bit. And that's when the idea to bring in Hunter Prasada was thought of. And the three of them enter into a group relationship, a sexual relationship. And you're going to hear Officer Martinez testify that at some point, after about 2 months, it wasn't working out. Corey Valentine wanted Hunter Prasada out. And Ashley Martinez respected that. She said to Hunter Prasada, "This is done. We're over." Well, it wasn't over for Hunter Prasada. That was just the beginning. Well, he continues to try and attempt to get Ashley Martinez back, which in some sense he does. But it's not in the way that he wanted it. It was private. It was behind closed doors. It was an affair. And this is where the jealousy starts to really begin. Another night after work, you're going to hear Officer Martinez testify about a time that Hunter Prasada casually walks by, just tosses Ashley Martinez a ring. It was a proposal. Not a serious one, but a proposal nonetheless. And you're going to hear Officer Martinez testify that she didn't take it serious. She thought it was a joke, sort of laughed it off. But it wasn't funny for Hunter Prasada, because again, it wasn't over for him. So the next time, he calls Officer Martinez up at her phone, says, "I'm here, I'm outside." He's willing to do whatever he can to get her back. Well, this time, Corey Valentine was there. Corey Valentine got involved. And that's where Hunter Prasada chose to cut out the person getting in his way. That's when Corey Valentine entered that home and decided that by the time he would leave, everything would change. Which leads me to my second point. Hunter Prasada tried to cover up the crime. And that's when you're going to hear Chief Claudio testify about the investigation that followed not too long after. He's going to tell you how he came to the conclusion that the defendant killed Corey Valentine. He's going to tell you how it all started with a burning car on Dia del Candelaria. he's going to tell you that when he got to the car, one of his officers recognized that it was Corey Valentine's. And the unusual part for Chief Claudio was that Corey Valentine had disappeared for 3 days. Had disappeared for 3 days without any notice. No phone call that he was sick, that she was sick. No phone call or message from anyone that she was out of town. Nothing. So Chief Claudio got involved. Cornered off the car, had it sent to an expert for an analysis, and then that analysis came back with some very cold conclusions. You're going to see the forensic report that Chief Claudio, the report that Chief Claudio kept immediately after that interaction occurred. And there were a couple things that expert found out. Number one, despite how severely burnt that car was, the expert was able to find the VIN number, the vehicle identification number. And that number was used to connect the car to its owner, Corey Valentine. The forensic expert also found a second thing, a metal body part. Well, on that metal body part, there was also an identification number, and that identification number was also used to link back to its owner. Went back to the hospital, to the manufacturer who created the part, the hospital who bought the part, and the surgeon who installed the part into Corey Valentine's shoulder. Now that started to raise some more questions for Chief Claudio, and he's going to explain to you the next steps that he took, which were, where was Corey Valentine? And that next logical step for Chief Claudio was contacting the phone company. You're going to see those reports that he made when those contacts occurred. Chief Claudio was able to find out where Corey Valentine's phone was and pinpoint exactly where that was. You're going to see those records. And you're also going to see the cell phone locations of Ashley Martinez and Hunter Prasada. Well, by the end of his investigation, Chief Claudio searched Hunter Prasada's home, and what he found was Corey Valentine's phone. It was after that point that Chief Claudio knew who the killer was, and that's when he arrested the defendant. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of this trial, my partner, Thomas McCarty, is going to come up here and ask that you find the defendant guilty on all 3 counts. He's going to do that with the same 2 points we just brought up today. And your job throughout the rest of this case is to remember that love triangles are simple, but they're not easy. And eventually, someone gets jealous. Good morning.
Morning.
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
I'm Chief Claudio.
Where do you live?
I live in San Juan.
Do you work for a living?
Yes, I'm the chief officer at the old San Juan precinct.
Have you always been the chief?
Not always. I moved up the rank, but for the last couple of years I have been.
What do you mean by being the chief police officer?
So it's my job to supervise the other officers under my command and sometimes investigate crimes.
Okay. And how long have you been working for the police force?
23 years.
Can you tell us what's an investigation?
So, an investigation is after a crime has been reported to the police. We try to figure out who committed the crime by looking at the evidence and all the things that people tell us.
Okay, I'd like to talk about the investigation involved with this case. How did this investigation begin?
So, the investigation began when there was a 911 report of a car burning in La Perla.
And what happened next?
Well, one of my officers who was at the scene thought it looked like Officer Corey Valentine's car, who hasn't come to work a few days beforehand, so I went to investigate.
When you arrived at the scene, what did you see?
By the time I got to the scene, the car was totally unidentifiable because the burning it was engulfed in flames.
So if it was unidentifiable, then how did you have any idea that it could be Corey Valentine's car?
Well, the officer was able to get the VIN number of the car, and we traced the VIN number back to Corey Valentine.
Are you sure it was the officer?
No, it was an expert who could get the VIN number off the car.
So did the investigation end at the scene, or did it continue elsewhere?
It continued elsewhere.
Where did it go next?
Next, the expert also told me that the car had fragments of a residue of human remains. So the medical examiner tried to identify the human remains.
Okay. And did the expert link the human remains to anyone?
Yes, they found that there was a pin from the body parts in the trunk that wasn't burned, and there was a serial number on the body part, and we could trace that back to a surgery that Corey Valentine had.
Okay. So, Chief Claudio, is it unusual to find a burning car on the street?
Not on that particular day because it was a holiday where local residents burned cars. So normally it would be, but not on that specific day.
So now I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about some other parts of your investigation. Were there other experts that you spoke with?
Yes, I talked to somebody from the telephone company who gave me the triangulation of Corey Valentine's cell phone, Ashley Martinez's cell phone, and Hunter Posada's cell phone.
All right, can you break that down a little bit more for the jury, please?
So what happens is the cell phone company can tell where a cell phone has been at a certain time based off of the GPS, and I asked for the 3 phones where they were the night that Corey died.
And how did that information help your investigation?
It helped my investigation by Ashley Martinez it confirmed Ashley Martinez's story of what happened that night.
And were you able to learn anything else?
I was also able to learn of where Corey's cell phone was after Corey had died.
And what did that tell you?
That told me that it was at Ashley Martinez's house.
Okay. And did you interview any officers throughout the investigation?
Yes, I interviewed Ashley, Hunter, and yeah.
Did Ashley Martinez did interviews with Ashley Martinez help move along your investigation?
Yes, she said that Hunter killed Corey.
And did you interview Hunter Posada?
Yes.
And did that interview, what did Hunter Posada tell you that that assisted your investigation?
Objection. Hearsay.
Mm-hmm. Counselor?
Party opponent?
Well, tell me what she's going to say.
Yes, Your Honor. Assuming we're outside the presence of the jury, if the witness is allowed to testify, the witness will say that that Hunter Posada initially denied being involved with the murder, and that a week or two later that Hunter Posada admitted that he was involved with the murder.
All right. Anything else?
Withdraw my
Okay.
objection.
Do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes.
How did Hunter Posada's testimony interview? Did the interview with Hunter Posada assist your investigation?
Yes, he first said he had nothing to do, that he hadn't seen Corey since last time we were in the station. But eventually he said that he was part of the cover-up.
So once he admitted that he was part of the cover-up, did you what did you do next?
I performed a search warrant on Hunter's house and Ashley's house.
What did you find at Ashley's house?
Nothing that was relevant to the murder of Corey.
What did you find at Hunter Posada's house?
I found at Hunter's house photos that led me to believe that Hunter was obsessed with Ashley.
Objection.
On what grounds?
That's unfairly prejudicial, Your Honor. There's nothing, and unfortunately, we don't have these photos to really determine whether or not Hunter was obsessed with Ashley or any way for the jury to determine that. And I feel that it unfairly prejudices the jury into believing, it confuses the jury and it misleads them into thinking that Hunter.
Okay. Counselor?
I believe my co-counselor's objection would be better served translated into a cross-examination.
Well, why don't you tell me why it's admissible?
It's admissible because it's relevant to the investigation. It's relevant because this whole case revolves.
How is the defendant's possession of pictures of someone with whom he was in a sexual relationship with, admitted by a previous witness, actually the subject of those pictures, how is that relevant to the murder of a third person?
It speaks to the defendant. It speaks to the defendant's state of mind in terms of the murder and the cover-up. It can speak to his motivation for why he murdered the Corey Valentine, and can help not the pictures themselves, but the testimony can help the jury understand why the defendant did this.
So the pictures themselves, you contend, make it more likely that the defendant intended to kill Valentine.
Then without the pictures, yes.
How is it that this witness can testify about what the defendant's interpretation of those pictures are? Because the witness just said that the defendant was obsessed with Officer Martinez.
Well,
How can this witness say that? I have a lot of pictures of my cat, but I'm not obsessed.
That's true, Your Honor. Maybe I could clarify with the witness why I could ask the witness why he or she was able to.
Well, what would you anticipate the witness's answer to be?
If the witness, if allowed to testify, will say that they were not that he was not aware of any. He was not aware that there was any ongoing relationship between the three of them, and that the pictures that the pictures.
So here's what we can do. We can allow this witness to testify about facts. Facts such as, I found a lot of pictures in the house.
Correct.
Certainly the defense's only remedy to that is to cross-examine as to why those pictures were never retrieved. And then the witness can also say that she was not aware that the three of them were in a sexual relationship together. The witness cannot, though, speculate as to why the defendant had those pictures.
Yes.
So the comment about the defendant being obsessed is not within the purview of this witness. All right, so I will sustain the objection on that ground.
Just to remind the jury, what did you find in Hunter Posada's house?
I found pictures. I also found a machete, and I found a newspaper article.
And what? Sorry, could you repeat that, please?
I found pictures. I found machete, and I found newspaper clipping, a newspaper article. I also found Corey's cell phone.
Oh, okay. And what did why was the newspaper clip relevant?
The newspaper clip was relevant because it was about a murder of a homeless man. So I thought that was relevant.
And after you completed your search, did you ask Hunter Posada why Corey Valentine's phone was at the home?
Objection, leading.
Did you ask Hunter Posada? Overruled.
I'm sorry, I heard why did you ask? Is that the question?
Either way, that would also be overruled.
Hunter Posada told me that Ashley left the phone there.
With everything in mind that you just told the jury, did you come to any conclusions by the end of your investigation?
Yes, that Hunter Posada killed Corey Valentine.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself to the jury.
I'm Chief Claudio.
And where do you live?
I live in San Juan.
You work there as well?
Yes, I am the head of the Old San Juan Police Precinct.
What's your official title?
I'm the chief.
Have you always been the chief?
No, I worked my way up the ranks and then eventually became chief.
If you had to take a guess, how long did it take you?
23 years, give or take a couple.
Very good guess. But as a chief police officer, what kind of responsibilities do you have?
So my job is to supervise all the officers that are below me, and sometimes I investigate crimes.
All right. What could you name before we go into your investigations? Could you name the officers that have worked in your precinct within the past, let's say, 2 years?
Sure. Officer Hunter Posada works for me. Officer Ashley Martinez works for me. Officer Talia Rosado works for me. He's my second in command. And Dan Claudio, my nephew, works for me too.
In the past 2 years, there was no one else that worked?
Oh, there's been lots of people who work for me. We're a pretty busy precinct, but those are the only people who are concerned in this case.
Okay. Now you mentioned you do an investigation. Could you tell us, what is an investigation?
So an investigation starts after we get a call of a criminal activity happen, and we go to the scene. We look for clues, like the TV shows, and then we analyze those clues, and then we find a person who committed the crime.
Do you always find who committed the crime?
We try very hard, but sometimes there isn't. We can't figure it out.
And when you can't figure something out yourself in the investigation, what do you do?
We seek people who have more knowledge than we do, so we talk to people, we talk to experts to
Okay.
figure out what happened.
All right. Well, in the past year or two, have any of your officers unexpectedly died?
Yes, Corey Valentine died.
Before Corey Valentine died, was there any reason to have any suspicion that this death would occur?
Objection. Bleeding.
Before, is there any reason for any suspicion that this death would occur? Overruled.
You may repeat the question.
Yes.
Before Corey Valentine died, was there any reason, did you have any kind of suspicion that this death would occur?
Oh, she didn't come to work the couple of days before her body was found, so that was the only thing I thought maybe something had happened.
All right. Well, let's talk about then when the moment, or when did the investigation actually start? At what point?
It started on February 2nd when we got a 911 call saying that a car was on fire.
Was that unusual for that time?
No, because it was during the Festival of Candelaria.
What's that?
It was a festival where the people would set things on fire to celebrate the Virgin Mary.
So when you or one of your officers arrived at the scene, this was very routine for that kind of night.
Yes.
And at what point did it not become routine?
Well, the officer at the scene thought it looked like Corey Valentine's car, so they called me to investigate.
And when you arrived, what did you see?
Well, the car by the time I got there was completely burnt and it was unrecognizable, but we got the car to an expert who could get the VIN number off the car.
When the expert received the car, was there anything recognizable about the car or within the car?
Yes, there was two things that the expert had talked to me about. One was the VIN number. They were able to get the VIN number off the car, and that pointed to it was being Officer Corey Valentine's car.
Okay, wait, before we go any, what is a VIN number?
VIN number is a vehicle identification number. Each car has their own VIN number, and it's specific to that car.
And so how do you just look up how do you connect the VIN number to the person?
The car companies keep a list of the VIN numbers.
And what conclusion did that VIN number tell you?
That it was Corey Valentine's car.
Okay, and you said that there was another point that the expert made to you. What was that?
That they found remnants of body parts in the trunk of the car.
And were they able to identify the body? What body parts did they find?
The body was pretty badly burned, but what they did find was a pin that was in a surgical pin that was put in the body, and we were able to trace that back to Corey Valentine.
How were you able to trace that?
Well, the pin had an identification number, and we tracked it from the manufacturing all the way to the hospital and the surgeon who put it in Ms. Valentine.
Would you say that's similar to the way that you use the VIN number to identify the car?
Yes.
Okay. And after, so you've identified the car, you've identified a body part. What did that body part, once you identified it, what conclusion did that lead you to?
It led me that Corey Valentine was dead.
Okay. So at this point, is the analysis of the car over?
Yes.
Okay. So what step did you take next?
Next, we started talking to people.
And who was one of the Who was one of the persons that you spoke with?
We spoke to Ashley Martinez.
And could you remind the jury who Ashley Martinez is?
Ashley Martinez was dating Corey Valentine.
Does she work? Does she have any professional relationship with you and the other officers?
Yeah, she also works in the same precincts as all of us.
Okay. And when you spoke to Officer Martinez, what kind of points did she make to you that were relevant to this investigation?
Well, at first she said that she didn't know anything, but then eventually she told me that Hunter Posado killed Corey Valentine and she helped clean up the body.
And how were you able to corroborate any of her testimony that she gave you?
Yes, we were able to get the triangulations of Corey's phone, Ashley's phone, and the defendant's phone, and we were able to corroborate all of the spots that Hunter was at by his cell phone.
That who?
We were able to corroborate where the defendant was all during the cleanup cover-up process.
Okay. So I'd like to just break that down a little bit more. All right, one moment. Were they all at the same location? Are you saying that they were all at the same location at one time or another?
Yes.
And when do you have an idea of when that happened?
I believe at 9:30 on January 31st.
Is this the same night that the car was burned?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh wait, no. I'm sorry. It was not the same car. The day the car was burnt on February 2nd. The car was burnt.
And was that the same night? Was that the same night? Are you connecting that with the cell phone records?
The cell phone records has nothing to do with what day the car was burnt.
Okay. So what do the cell phone records tell us?
The cell phone records tell us what happened, where everyone was on the day of January 31st, which is the day that Ashley says that Corey was killed.
I understand. Were you able? Where did you eventually find any of the victim's cell phone?
Yes.
Where did you find that?
We found it at the defendant's home.
Why were you at the defendant's home?
I got a search warrant to search the defendant's home.
At this point in the investigation, why did you need a search warrant?
Because we believed that the defendant killed Corey, so we wanted to look for evidence at his home.
Based off the burned vehicle and the triangulation of the phone records.
Yes.
And after this, who did you arrest?
We arrested the defendant, Hunter Posado.
No further questions. Morning, Mr. Posada, Officer Posada. You were in an open relationship with Ashley Martinez and Corey Valentine.
It was the three of us. There was nobody else. But, yeah, it was a relationship.
Three-person relationship.
Yeah, I think we call it a poly relationship.
And this relationship went on for a few months.
About 2 months, yes.
And then Corey Valentine got upset.
Yeah, I believe, it was decided that it couldn't continue like that.
She didn't want to share this three-person relationship with you.
Correct, yes.
So Ashley Martinez, so she asked Ashley Martinez to end it with you.
Correct.
And Ashley Martinez asked this because of Corey Valentine.
That was my understanding, but I don't know what the conversations between the two
So
of
that's
them.
your understanding.
Right, just that the two of them decided that I couldn't continue.
All right, and but Ashley Martinez still cared. She still cared about you even after that.
That was my understanding, and we continued on our own without Corey knowing we engaged in an affair,
Yeah,
basically.
you had an affair. And then this was all done behind Corey Valentine's back.
That's correct.
And but while all this is happening, Ashley Martinez still won't leave Corey Valentine to be with you.
That's right. Yes.
So, and on top of this, she never stopped their relationship. Her relationship with Corey Valentine kept going.
Right. The two of them had been together for some time, and they wanted to continue being together.
Right. And as far as you knew, Corey Valentine was stopping Ashley Martinez from loving you. As far as you knew.
Objection,
On what grounds?
speculation.
Well, he's asking specifically what he thinks. So, overruled.
Yeah, it was a weird situation because, independent of each other, I was with both of them, so they wouldn't end the relationship with each other, but I was still with both of them. So I don't know. I think between the two of them, yeah, Corey didn't want Ashley to be with me anymore, but yeah,
Okay.
I was with Corey.
Right. So despite all this, you're still trying. You're still having the affair, and eventually you proposed to her.
To Ashley, yes.
Yeah. It wasn't a serious proposal. It was a casual one.
I just wanted her to think about it, because I saw her in a serious way like that.
And you were casual about it because you really weren't absolutely sure that Ashley Martinez would say yes.
Well, I don't think anyone's really sure if someone they're proposing to is going to actually say yes when it comes down to it.
Well, I mean, but in this case, the woman you're proposing to is in a public relationship with another person.
That's true, yes.
So you toss her the ring, literally,
I did.
and because a serious proposal could have meant rejection for you.
I suppose.
Uh,
I mean, I was actually proposing, though. It wasn't a fake proposal.
Right, but I mean, you didn't get down on one knee. I believe you tossed her a ring.
That's right.
You don't really see eye to eye with Corey Valentine anymore, do you?
Well, I mean, she's dead now.
You don't see though while she was alive, you didn't see eye to eye with Corey Valentine.
I guess you could say we had kind of a falling out, yes.
All right. Well, Ashley Martinez doesn't leave Corey Valentine. She stays with her, and eventually you go to their home one night to see them.
What night do you mean?
I believe it was the night of Corey Valentine's death, February 2nd.
On the 31st, I received a message from Ashley Martinez to come over to the house.
And you did.
I did, yes, because Ashley Martinez told me to.
And you went into the house,
That's right.
and eventually you left the house.
I did.
And Corey Valentine, by the time you left the house, was dead.
She was dead before I got there.
She was dead before you got there.
That's right.
And you helped. So you helped Ashley Martinez take a dead body out of her home,
I did, yes.
and you put the body into the car,
We did, both of us together.
and you drove the car to another location across town,
We did.
and eventually you burned the car.
That's right.
And then a few weeks later, the police find Corey Valentine's phone at your house.
They do.
And after all is said and done, you still deny that you killed Corey Valentine.
I just said that when I got to the house, Ashley had already killed Miss Valentine, and that I at that point just was trying to protect Miss Martinez, Ashley Martinez. So I helped her cover it up. I didn't know what else to do at that point other than to try and help Miss Martinez.
You were trying to protect the woman that continuously rejects you.
Right.
No further questions. Good afternoon, Officer Quesada. I just want to step back before we really talk about the aftermath of the murder. I just want to talk about the relationship with Officer Martinez and Corey Valentine. You were in a three-person relationship, were you not? 3 people.
Yeah, it was. Yes.
Right. And you guys were in a sexual relationship.
That's correct.
And eventually, after about 2 months, call it what you want, you were ousted from that relationship.
Well, what happened was Corey Valentine wanted me to break up with.
Well, I'm not talking about how it happened. Just the end result was you were out.
Well, I think you have to understand, in order to understand what happened, that Corey Valentine wanted me to leave, her and us to be together alone. And when I said no, then she told Ashley that they had to break up. We had to stop being all together, the three of us.
Okay. So, are you implying that you were attracted to Corey Valentine and not Ashley Martinez?
No, what I said was that Corey Valentine wanted just her and I to be in a relationship together, and not the three of us. And I said I wouldn't do that.
Okay. Well, okay. Anyhow, so three of you are together, and then afterwards, the three of you are not all together. Is that correct?
Right, the two of them stayed together.
And then when the two of them were together, you still tried to get Ashley Martinez.
Objection.
On what grounds?
Relevance, Your Honor. What does this have to do with the fact that Ashley killed Valentine, or whatever, sorry, killed Valentine?
Right, Counselor, I hear you.
This is setting up the intent part of the murder count.
Well, what is the witness going to say, and how is that relevant?
The witness is allowed to testify. Expect to say that to agree that the witness kept going after, chasing, so to speak, actually Officer Martinez.
The witness going after Ashley Martinez, doesn't prove any motive, or the witness has not offered any testimony that it is motive to go after Corey Valentine.
Overruled.
Mr. Officer Quesada, you attempted to propose to Miss Martinez. Is that correct? You attempted to propose for a marriage.
I did not. No.
So you did not give her a ring.
No.
You did not.
I don't know what you're talking about. Ashley and I engaged in an affair after I stopped being with the three of them, but it was nothing more than that.
So you never asked her for. You never said to her. You said to her, your family. You could be with my family, not Corey Valentine.
I never said that.
Okay. So you. All right. You never proposed. Oh, okay. All All right. Well, you were rejected by them. You confronted them at their home, did you not? Ashley Martinez and Corey Valentine.
What do you mean? Confronted them at the home.
You arrived at their home. Did you not arrive at their home
When?
on February 1st, I believe it was.
I think maybe you're referring to January 31st, which
January
is.
31st. Did you arrive at their home?
I called Ashley to find out what had happened about her having a conversation about with Corey about the bribery allegation. And when I called her, Ashley told me that something terrible had happened and that she needed my help to come and help her. So that's when I went to go see what was going on. So I arrived at their home, yes.
And by the time you left, Corey Valentine was dead.
She was dead before I got there.
Okay. And after you left, you did report this to the police department, did you?
No, because Ashley threatened to come up with a bunch of lies and frame me basically for the crime that she had committed.
So you were afraid that Ashley Martinez was going to frame you.
She told me she was going to.
And at the same time you're afraid, you've also worked with criminals, gang members, have you not?
I don't work with them. I'm a police officer. I arrest them and put them in jail.
But you were afraid of what a fellow officer of the law could do.
Yeah, she said she was going to frame me and that she had criminal friends who were going to help her. I knew that she had been dealing with these drug dealers. So yeah, it sounded like a threat that could.
And despite this, you continued to dismantle the body, correct?
The body was in pieces when I got there. I helped her put it in bags.
You bagged it up. You put the bag in the car, in the trunk.
Right, we both did.
And you brought the car to another part of town.
Right, Ashley drove us in Corey's car to La Perla.
And at a later point, you burned the car.
I did 2 days later, yes.
And 2 days later, you were alone when you burned the car.
Ashley told me to go there and burn the car. That's why I did it.
But when you did it, you were alone.
I was alone, yes.
So a reasonable police officer at that point would have told the police department what was going on.
Objection,
On what grounds?
counsel is testifying.
He's allowed to do that on cross-examination.
A reasonable police officer at that point would have contacted the police department.
I don't know what reasonable police officer we're talking about. I just know that I was in that situation and that under those circumstances, I felt like I didn't have a choice.
You don't know what a reasonable police officer would do.
I don't know what that means. I know that I'm a police officer and that I was in that situation. And in that situation, I did not have a choice.
Well, there are no further questions.
All right. Redirect.
Briefly, Your Honor.